Hey guys, welcome to the Dustin LeBleu CEO podcast. I am Dustin. I'm joined today by none other than Hulk Hogan.
What's going on, guys? Good to see you, especially you, brother.
Okay. All right, so it's not Hulk Hogan. It's just Austin.
Surprise. As if no one else clued in.
I don't know why that would be shocking to anybody. These dumbasses don't have Hulk Hogan.
Oh, God.
So look, today we're going to talk about something that it needs to be addressed probably because I know a lot of people like this, and quite frankly, it's annoying, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what we're going to talk about is never stop learning, and that comes along with don't think you know it all, because that's going to hinder your learning.
Yeah, that
basically in life.
Yeah, that last one right there. Don't think you know it all. Boy, oh boy, there are a lot of up and coming business owners or want to be entrepreneurs. I know that's already coined, but I'm going to steal it real quick. They think they're know-it-alls. They think they already know absolutely everything there is, and it greatly impedes on their progress going forward. But today we're going to hit on that. We got a few main points here, so
yeah, and the first one is don't act like you know it all, because simply when you do that is, you're never going to learn, and you want to be able to learn new things all the time. Like, This is something that I like to do. Like, even if it doesn't have anything to do with my business as a whole, I like to learn new things. And I probably drive my wife like absolutely nuts with this, because every month I'm like looking at new stuff and things like that, and I get obsessed with it. But that's okay, because ultimately you want to learn new things and be able to eventually put those into action. And that's what we'll get into later on.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here, like running through my mind, like, what could I use as an example? Like trying to go through my mind. And the first thing, for some odd reason, that pops up, of all things, is Photoshop. I always told myself, I'm like, man, I know these programs like the back of my hand. I know everything there is to know about this. I'm like the master. I stopped using that mindset, and I know you can vouch for me.
Yeah, I can.
My work has gotten multitudes better because I am constantly teaching myself new things and given the program updates. So there are new things, but it's the fact that I quit having the mindset of I'm like the Jedi Master of Photoshop. So the mindset of knowing or thinking you know everything, it can affect your work even in the smallest ways.
And it can actually affect you when you get hired. So like going to your point of knowing Photoshop and things like that, like a lot of people when we interview them, they'll act like they know everything, and it's like
they'll tell you that they can build websites,
right? So like you, Austin. But,
don't ever. Do that.
But now we've learned it's better to have somebody that's willing to learn rather than somebody that acts like they know every damn part of your business, because that is not true.
Exactly.
And when you put them to the test, they fail, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I made the mistake of of putting a few things down on my resume when I applied with Dustin, that I'd played with before, in terms of programs. So yeah, I'd played with some 3D modeling. I'd played with building websites before, but never put it down and say that you're like like a wizard at it, because it's going to come back and bite you in the ass really quick, especially like 3 weeks later when you're asked to build a website and you're like, well, you see.
Well, Wix.
Yeah. Let me tell you about this cool thing called Wix. No, because in the end, it's just a bunch of excuses, and it makes you look worse, because then you have to cover yourself as to why, you don't know all these things.
Yeah, and when you're covering yourself, you're not learning. You're just trying to pretty much BS yourself through what you thought you knew, or really you didn't even think you knew this stuff. You're basically lying to yourself, and then lying to others by 100%. Saying that you know all this stuff. So it makes you look bad.
Yeah, especially, man, that 3D modeling stuff. I lied to myself and made myself believe that I knew it. And then Jordan was like, "Yeah, I'd messed with this before."
So you're like, "Oh, damn."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh shit."
So this is the kind of things that'll happen if you act like you know it all. And the biggest thing is, it's going to stop you from learning more, because you're going to really convince yourself that you know everything in life, and then you're not going to learn new things, which you could attribute to your business later on. So if you're a business owner and you want to evolve your business, which we've talked about quite a bit, and it's what you have to do. Like if you go back and look at our first podcast, you see where I started. Mm-hmm. It wasn't in nutrition. It wasn't in movies. It wasn't in fashion. It wasn't in any of these things at all. So, well, nutrition a little bit from like GNC or whatever.
And the snow cone stand.
Obviously nutrition here, yeah. But yeah, like these are things that I've learned over time because I had the willing I was willing to learn and not say I know it all and really crush myself from learning and watching videos and observing. That's kind of the big thing.
Yeah, man. And you know what? Like you said, don't convince yourself that you do know everything, because if that's the point, just like you basically said, you basically stop learning in general. You don't have the drive to teach yourself. You can't admit to yourself that you don't know everything. And that's the big thing that I realized was, okay, I don't know all these programs, I don't know all this, and it translates to as a business owner. Hell, it even translates in the family.
Yes.
At some point you have to realize, okay, I don't have all the answers, I can't tell you everything, but
because your son or daughter is going to grow up and be like, dude, you're full of shit.
Exactly. But hey, you know what? You can learn from others by observing.
Yeah,
100%.
100%. So here's the thing: a lot of people, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, but some of you will ask a question, and then we'll kindly answer the question, but then you will come back with another question about the next step, and then another question about the next step. Well, people don't want to run the business for you, so you got to observe others. So the point of this podcast is for you to watch and learn some things that we've done in the past, and go like, oh, okay, I see how he did this. I can take some of these things that he's done and put those into place for myself and my family, and kind of grow from there. But constantly asking every step is going to be very tough for you, because you got to go learn it yourself at the same time while observing others around you as well.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things, man. I feel like observing others is pretty much, it's a key point in any part of business, really, because if you don't, I feel like we're almost going to contradict. I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here, because last week on the Weekly Espresso, I was like, don't spend too much time looking at your competition and what they're doing and everything. But, you do have to observe to an extent. I mean, I don't want to, have that weird line there, but.
No, here's the line, though, because observing, I'm talking about observing, like, you're seeing what's out there, but you're not like going out there and copying your competition. You're not trying to do that. You're not trying to copy. You're just taking elements of what you see and what can be successful for your own good and for your own brand and for your own branding of what you're trying to do. So if you believe everything is correct, that everything is right and you can't be wrong and you know everything, well, then you're never going to grow.
Yeah.
So you got to take some elements from other people, but I'm not saying straight up copy people and worry about everything they do. I'm not saying
exactly. And, kind of to go back, to we're not going to run the business for you or something like that. Guys, since podcast 1, YouTube and Google University, you have the capability to look things up on the internet and take the initiative, observe what other people do. Other people have the ability to go, do a little bit of the work themselves. Don't forget that. Like, don't get overly annoying. I'm going to have to say it. Don't constantly pester someone to run your business for you. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn to, reason and research like one. So
yeah, and a lot of people, I think they'll ask the question so they can be like, aha, you were wrong. Well, if you're not willing to say, point at yourself and go, I was wrong, you're just not going to be able to be an entrepreneur. You're going to have to face that day. You're going to be wrong, and you have to understand that. Yep. So that's okay.
Yeah. So, what's something that most entrepreneurs themselves are doing, and that's they're dabbling in something that piques their interest. They're in something that appeals to them. So,
So I'll tell you what I do. I'll dabble in a lot of different things. Like I'll look up this, look up that, and then and when something catches my interest, I'm like, oh man, okay, this is really cool. So I'll give you an example. Like, well, movies was a good one. That was kind of like out of nowhere. Everybody's like, what the hell? You want to do movies? What? And by the 3 months later, we were already in movies.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't think. We just went, go. But another one that's caught my eyes now is like quantum physics. Like if you follow our Instagram, I posted something about quantum physics. I think it's freaking fascinating. And I love, it's just so interesting to me that I'm kind of getting obsessed with it, that and epigenetics. So I'm like, oh man, this is really awesome. So how can I actually take quantum physics and epigenetics and somehow put it into things that I'm doing now? And I think I actually have an idea for that. So that could be something in the future that we do. But this is a great example of never stop learning, even though it may not look like it's in the field that you do. And even if it's not in the field you do, you might expand to that field.
Yeah. But, in your shoes, man, to be great and successful, you have to learn and obsess about what you love.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you can't find interest in what you love, then you probably don't love it like you think you do. Or
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
it's not the right business for you.
And it's really tough. Like you've seen this, man. Like so Austin and I have worked with. How many business owners have we worked with over the course of 2 years? Man, probably 300 or 400.
I was going to say, yeah. Let alone, yes. I'm not even going to go into depth on that, but yes.
Yeah, and these go from very small businesses to large businesses that are in the 10s, 20, $30 million a year range, and then even
Easy.
larger actually.
Easy.
So, but what you see the difference in a lot of those people is the real big ones that really succeed. They're almost obsessed with what they're doing. Like they love it so much that it's just so easy for them to do, because if you're not obsessed with it, it's just hard to kind of, I hate to use the word grind, but kind of stay on that grind and stay on that crazy long highway to so-called success.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, that's the perfect word for it though, because if you if you have developed an obsession for a particular passion in whatever field that you're in, you have no problem with putting your head down and putting that work in, even if it means staying up late at night, even if it means working on the weekends. You have no problem fulfilling the definition of entrepreneur. At all. And a lot of people don't want to put in that extra work. They don't want to find that obsession for a certain passion, and therefore they stop learning.
Or they're not getting it. They're looking at just the money aspect of it. So if you look at just the money aspect of it, it's really hard to learn, because you're just trying to, when you're looking up stuff, you're just trying to say, okay, well, how can I make money quick? And you see this in high school. They put that pad of paper in front of you. Well, at least they did when I was in school. So they'd be like, hey, what do you want to be? Here's the figures in front of it. Well, what are most people going to do, of course? Like, they're going to look at the biggest number and go, oh, I want to be a doctor or a pharmacist or whatever, right?
Exactly. And you know what? Just because for some reason, this has stuck with me since I was in high school. This was like almost 7 years ago now. And I remember what they started doing was the aptitude test. And what they would do is they would take those tests, and you'd have like your top 15, top 20 results for, what they say you want to do.
Oh, I remember
right?
this. Yeah.
So my number one, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, was a hydrologist, which is like a person that measures, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I said, it's been 7 years. I want to say it's like somebody that like does something with rainwater or like water levels in the earth or something like that. And I'm like, what in the hell? Like, this fits nothing that I want to do. But dude, it had like, like they were making bank. So of course that's naturally I started looking at that. But in the end, I was like, even with the money, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
Like I want a job that or a career that I can enjoy, something that I can go home at night and not dread tomorrow. Sure. I want something that I can, wake up and be excited to go to work.
Yeah.
And, obsess over it.
And that's what's refreshing about this podcast. See, guys, when you're listening to this, you get the aspect from me as a business owner who is self-made. And, if you listen to the first podcast, a lot of obstacles that I've overcame, and those are in the past. But you also get Austin's perspective, which, he's only, what are you, 25? 26?
Right now?
What are you? How old are you?
23.
23. Whatever,
dude, I turned 24.
Hey,
dude, we both, our birthdays are both this time. Just
That's right. All right. So you're going to be 24.
Yep.
So, Austin came to me as a young kid and then basically has grown like unbelievable. Like he's taken basically shit by the balls and just really went. He just really went with it. And it took him a year and a half, 2 years to kind of like understand what it takes, but he's done that.
Dude, I'm going to be honest. It did take me a lot. Like, I remember starting, and of all things, I remember the bullshit resume that I had, saying I could do all these things. I remember in the very beginning, like, feeling horrible because I had convinced myself, that I knew all these things. And I remember that I had constantly tried to convince myself I knew all this. And then it took me, like you said, dude, it took me like a year and a half, almost 2 years to finally admit that I still needed to learn, that I needed to progress and move forward if I was going to be able to stick around with your companies, just because I knew how you move forward and I know how you surround yourself with people. Mm-hmm. And, I wanted to stick with it. And I mean, like, I love what I do. And I look forward to coming to work now. And it's because I opened up my mind and realized, okay, in order to enjoy what I do, I've got to change how I think, and I need to realize that I have to learn. I have to I have to realize I'm not, I'm not smart with all of this. I don't know everything, which takes us back to step one.
But you have a crazy skills in certain areas, then you have to understand those. And that like I said, this is what's great about the podcast is we get your perspective as well as mine, because you're going to be a business owner at some point as well.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. We as a company, for me, I want to see my people succeed. I want to learn as much as possible because I'm not always going to be into the same thing. Hence quantum physics and things like that. I'm learning that stuff because, I want to, I literally obsess about stuff. So to go to the point of staying up at night, dude, 3 nights ago, I was up and I guess it was probably about 4:30 in the morning just learning about quantum physics and epigenetics. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes sometimes, actually most of the time, to be a successful business owner. Or, whether I get into that or I don't, so what? I learned about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, we were lifting, what was it, last week and on Friday? And then we started talking about like self-awareness and conscience and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this is all, it's like a science lifting session. But it was really sweet. And you know what, man? I'm starting to notice my mind is kind of doing the same thing now. I'm not up late, super late at night. But, I've caught myself trying to teach, or not teach, but learn a little bit more about marketing and in certain aspects of it, because you know what? Of all things, my wife's obsessed with baby clothes and stuff, and she's good at turning them and making money on certain brands and stuff like that. And now I'm trying to teach myself what does it take to develop a company in general, because I want to, I see potential for her and possibly for myself in the future with something in that field. But I'm doing the same thing, man. I'm trying to teach myself more about the back end of business, and I'm trying to observe as well and watch how you do yours.
Yeah, and you would say this is really true. We actually, after last week's episode, Austin and I kind of sat here and we were fiddling around with Logic Pro, and we were talking about his wife and the business venture. I was like, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty neat, man. But Austin never really comes to me and directly asks me questions, which I'm okay with because he's there. But he knows that I'm such a stickler about, look, man, if you want to open a business, you have got to get out there and learn things for yourself. If you can't even go out there and try to find some answers on Google, business is probably not for you. Now, this is a stepping stool to teach you some things. And like we said before, this is just things that we know from business as a whole and the way we've done it. I'm not saying we're Tony Robbins or anything like that, or any of these people that are life coaches or whatever. We're just giving you experiences that we've had. And I think that's a great point, for your wife learning. Yeah. By her, that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that, and that's the thing is I even explained it to her in the aspect of, you know what, we have to learn this before, asking a ton of questions and jumping straight in, because if we just jump straight into it and get, I could come to you and ask you all these questions and stuff, but in the end, I didn't do any due diligence there. I simply asked you a question and asked for the, the right direction. Now, yes, that's fine in certain ways, but I never truthfully learned from it. I basically just stole your knowledge on the thing, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to understand it. I guess understanding would be a great way to put that. But in the end, it's still learning.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's learning, and that's something that I never really had. I never really had somebody to tell me, because when I started business, the internet wasn't real big or nothing like that. So it was I kind of had to dive into a lot of things. But that's just kind of how I am. But I do understand a lot of people are not like that. But at the same time, you're going to have to, figure out what you do like. And like I said before, man, I hate to keep going back and back on this, but you have to kind of get an obsession with it. Because when you have that obsession, you do things that you honestly don't even understand that you can do. You know what I'm saying? You've seen it. You've seen it. When you started with us, dude, were we even doing movies? We weren't doing fashion.
No.
We weren't doing
anything in those fields. And it was, I literally think it was the day of my interview. Chase, which would be your cousin, had told me, he was like, in 6 months, you are going to be doing something completely different than you are now. I didn't believe him. I was like, that makes no sense to me. I don't see how that's possible. This is a company, blah, 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 blah. Literally within 6 months, Dustin came to me and we were talking about movies. Within another 3 months, we'd got the Black Magic, which is the Black Magic Ursa. It's a cinematography camera. And then within another 3 months of that, already filming a movie.
Yeah, that's how fast we move. And that's
That was less than a year. That was like less than or right at a year total, maybe a little less than from me starting.
Yeah, put it this way: within a 2.5 year span, we filmed 5 films that are all coming out.
Yep.
We only had 1 come out, so that sounds like if we were to say that at the beginning, say, "Hey, I want to learn movies," you would have never thought in your wildest dreams that we would have 5 pretty much finished films in 2.5 years. That sounds berserk. I know a lot of you guys don't really know what it takes to film something or to do movies, but it's extremely time consuming and it's a lot of tedious work. Like when you watch something, if you filmed a movie, you'll never watch something the same way again.
No, you're gonna end up. You know what? I almost want to say that it ruined my movie experiences because now I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, I will critique everything. You know who got the worst about it was Jordan. He's like, oh my God, look, I can see what they, like, what's wrong with the lights? What's wrong with all the audio and everything?
But that comes with being obsessed with it though, because you've done it. So you're like, oh, look at this terrible thing. And not saying like, dude, our first movie, horrible, but that's okay. Like that's how we learned. Literally didn't know anything at that time.
Yeah. We really learned off of that one, but I mean,
well, that's an understatement, Hulk Hogan. Come on now.
Sorry, guys.
almost can't talk in that voice now, but yeah, I think, to take anything away from, basically from this episode is don't ever, accept the mindset that you know everything and always be open to learning and become obsessed with whatever you're doing. And if you can't get obsessed with it, find something else because you will not be happy if you can't be obsessed.
Yeah, don't just take something because it looks like you can make a lot of money. That may come later in your business career, right? So you might have 2 or 3 businesses that you're wildly passionate about, and then you're like, hey, I want to invest some money in whatever. Like you might want to angel invest or whatever because you feel like this cat over here just has a great passion for what he's doing. You can make some money. That's a different story. But when you're starting out, best believe you need to be very open about learning and be passionate and kind of obsess about what you're going to start up. Because if not, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be incredibly tough to make that a, life business and something like that.
Yeah, and plus, odds are you're probably going to fail along the way. And if you fail with something that you're not obsessed about, you're going to immediately quit and it's been wasted time. However, if you fail with something that you're obsessed about, you're going to take the time to figure out how to do it better, how to make it better, and how to sell your idea and or business better. And in the end, you've done more work and you've made, your passion better.
Huge. That was a huge point. That was a huge point right there, man. Because, if you, like you said, if you obsess about something and you fail, you're now in the problem solving mode. You're not into, holy crap, what do I do? Like I just failed. Like I got to quit. And then what you'll see, most people, they'll quit and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, let me do this now.
Yep.
Well, that's hard to do this next thing now because you haven't even set your mindset on one thing to even make it good, even make it great. So make sure that's something you want to do.
And I know it's like real off key, but like for instance, I know Insane Labs has a bunch of, like we've dabbled in esports and still do with certain products. And one thing, I know a lot of those people listen to this podcast, and one thing I want to throw out there is I have a great disdain for the fact that in the community right now, all these people will have like a team or whatever, and you saw it as well. And if you do bad at one tournament, they'll immediately disband and have a new team for the next one. That is not how you do it. Now let's look at the top 2 teams. You guys know the names of them. They don't disband, and if they do bad, they practice, they obsess, they do better, and the next time they come around, they win.
And that's chemistry. And that's the thing, like what you just said, that would be the same thing as me going, hey, Austin, you made a mistake. Sorry, dude. Next. That happens. Like you have got to build that team around you. Like you have to be able to learn together. And that's a good point too, is learning as a team as well.
Yep.
Not being afraid.
Yeah. So for you guys, in that community that listen, you know what? Let's bring some change to it too, because God, it gets annoying seeing that happen.
For those of you that don't know, Austin is like wildly passionate, almost to a fault about esports.
Yeah.
So he came to me.
Fault.
Yeah, you came to me with the idea originally about getting into it. I was like, hey, this is great. And that's another good example of me learning from my employee. I'm open to say, Austin, what is it? Man, I think that's a great idea. Let's move with it. And it ain't been easy.
No, and that's the thing is like, what? And now that we've been in it, we've learned, from certain aspects. Again, we've learned that there's ways you can have an ROI in esports. Now there's a way, a certain way to do it, then there's a certain way that you don't do it. And it's just like in the way that we started off was not the right way at all. And like you said, to a fault, I stuck with something, and in the end, it was not a positive return. But
no, it wasn't. But that's something that ultimately we learned, so we can go back to it and go, okay, this wasn't the way to go. But ultimately, there might be some of those people in the past that we could even do business with in the future.
Exactly.
You don't know.
You don't burn bridges. And plus, there has been a positive outcome from all of it, which is the ambassador and affiliation program that we run with that company, which has been huge. But you guys see along the way we learned, and as a team, take that advice that Dustin said, which is learn as a team as well.
Yeah, and I think that's not to ramble on.
Yeah. But
be obsessed, love what you do, and never stop learning. And until really next time, y'all just start learning, and it's time for us to go rock it. So
exactly. We'll catch you all later, and thank you for tuning in to this week's podcast.